We are live. Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you?
I am well, and yourself?
Doing great, doing great. You look like you're in summer attire there. Is it
Yeah,
is
it's
it
been
hot where
kind of
you are?
yeah, it's been kind of warm. At least it seems like it's warm to me.
Yeah, I mean we're not that far. I was just giving you a hard time. It is warm.
Oh, what happened to me? Where did I go?
We're d-
Okay, dokie. I don't know what's happening today. Okay, hold on. Let's see. But I'm fine. I'm well. Um,
Okay,
Life is great. How about that? Life is great.
there. Good,
There
good.
I
There you
am.
are.
I'm
You're
back
back
now.
again.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
righty, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have a pretty interesting thing to talk about today, especially uh, especially because there are a lot of people that are confused as to what they should do with their retirement plans because of what's going on in the market. Gas prices are up, regular prices are up. Folks are getting to the point, those of us that are a little bit older in the workforce, we're getting to the point where we never did save for retirement. And so, or we saved just recently ago, and we're looking to see what we should do um, for retirement for this thing that's coming up. So we're going to talk a little bit about pretty much all of that. And the name of the program is Why Employees Rarely Increase Their 401k Savings. We're going to talk about that. So here's what I'll do. I will read your bio,
Okay.
and then we can just get started. Sound
Sounds
good?
good to me.
All right, everyone. Welcome to On the Patio with Crystal and Jevon. I am Jevon Thomas, retirement plan advisor. My co host is Crystal Mitchell, and she is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions. She's also the co director of Recycling Black Dollars, a co host of another radio slash internet show called The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. Happens every week. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, when do you do the business zone with yourself and Gilbert?
We do that every Friday at 3 o'clock on
Nice.
it streams on our Facebook page, our LinkedIn, and our
Okay.
YouTube page, which is the Business Zone. And we got a great series going on right now in honor of celebrating Women History Month. And so it's going to carry on into April. And so our first series on it was leadership and identity and commanding our authority. I think that's what it was. And next
Mm.
week, we're going to talk about communication and how important that is in business, being able to effectively communicate.
That is awesome. I know that's something I'll definitely want to check out. We do tend to communicate in different ways, men and women, and some of us don't communicate at all and kind of expect other folks to understand what our needs are. But
through
anyway,
through mental telepathy.
yeah, there you go. There you go. A little telepathy. That never
Yeah,
hurt anybody. A little telepathy.
never, never.
Okay, so let's get started with our topic here: why employees don't raise their uh, raise their savings, why they don't increase their savings. You know, it is kind of interesting how many employers take a look at their plan and they see the amount of assets there, and they wonder if employees have a savings problem. And I'd like to come right out here and say they really don't have a savings problem. They have what's called a stagnation problem,
Mm.
right? So the reality of the situation is when you take a look at a retirement plan, participation is up, auto enrollment is happening. So we're getting people in the plan, and the market is happening. So the money is growing in the plan, but contributions still stay at 3 to 6% or say, right?
Mm.
So that's an issue because participation, and this is one of those opportunities for a clip trigger. Participation is not progress, right? Just because you're in it doesn't mean that you're getting where you need to be. And
Right.
that's important, I think, nowadays because there are a lot of participants out there, investors out there that are thinking, all right, what should I do? And I think that really depends on how old you are. I'm sure you've had some folks ask yourself that sort of question recently, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, people right now, everybody's really concerned about a whole lot of things. One is definitely the living situation. If I'm having struggles right now and I'm working 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week, how am I going to survive if I'm going to retire in a couple of years based upon what's going on in our world today? So people are really concerned right now.
They are, and I think they should be. It is a time where we need to actually take a look at what's going on in our lives and decide if we need to make some changes. And I think, it is times like this that opens up that portal for us to take a look at them. Um, as a retirement plan advisor, I would say that education is key, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But um, in times like this, I've heard it said by many of my colleagues that depending on where you are in your life, there are different opportunities for you.
Mm,
Um, One thing we want to be aware of, though, is that you need to really understand what's going on with your portfolio, knowing what's in it, how it works, what it's supposed to do, and then what you're supposed to do. And that's a lot of mumbo jumbo without me making any concrete advice for people. But but concretely, I can say number one, if you have the option, and you should, because most companies have them, take that risk questionnaire, see what your risk tolerance is. That's number one.
hmm
Number two, I have to say, I can't say this more emphatically, buy low, sell high. So if the market is tanking, that's not a time for you to be selling. Okay. And then, of course, I totally believe if you're an investor in diversification. This is a great time to diversify, but don't diversify if you can out of something that's not doing well. So if you have two options to choose from, one that is doing well and one that's not doing so well, I would say in most cases, and I have to put a huge caveat in there, in most cases, if you're going to diversify, and you've got one that's doing a little bit better or not as bad as the other one, I would diversify out of that one.
mm,
And people will look at me and they'll say, why? Why should I cut something that's doing not as bad as something else? Right? Why should I take something that's doing well and cut that rather than something else? Well, it's very easy in the long term game, and that's what most retirement folks are, and I mean anything over the next, I would say, 6 months or so, long term game, you want something to come back. It's very difficult for it to come back if you don't have it, right? So
hmm
we don't want to cut things that are already going down. So, for example, if you go to buy peaches and you see them on sale versus the apples and you need to make a pie, if you started out thinking you're going to make an apple pie, but the peaches are on sale, you buy the peaches and you make a peach pie. If you have peaches and you have apples and you're going to make a pie, uh, and you think you want to bring something else in, do you make a peach pie because you don't have very many peaches? Or do you make an apple pie because you got lots of apples and you can use a few of them and get some more and still be okay, right?
Or you can get creative and make an apple peach pie.
Or you could do that, which is not a bad idea. And I might even throw in there a sweet potato pie, and you can get the recipe from me, the one that I love.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that. So that's kind of the way the market works, right? And that's how you can help. We're in a pretty rough time for many of us in the market. Many of us haven't saved. And many of us are just looking at this going, what is going to happen next? Right? Our prices are up, gas is up, groceries are up, mortgages are up. Everything is going up. Nothing is coming down.
Mm-mm.
We can talk about that in a different show, but we're at a situation where many of us are running out of money before we get to the end of the month. We got a whole lot more month to go before we have money to cover it. So
Right.
let's be a little bit smart about it. Let's not be emotional about this time.
Excuse me.
Let's make
Mm-hmm.
sure that when if we do make a cut, um, that we're not making a cut to something that's going to hurt us in the future, right? So it's very difficult for some folks to put into their mind, well, I want to buy low and sell high. Yes, you want to do that. You want to buy low and sell high. And this is an opportunity for you in many situations to buy low. So that's what we want to think, buying low,
I
not
agree.
selling low.
That's something I agree, and I also think at this point in time in life, in especially where we are in the world, um, depending on your convictions, you really do want to know where your money's being invested, because then
I
you
think you're
know.
absolutely right. You know,
Yeah.
it's one thing, I mean, I can step back from that and say, if you're really going to diversify your portfolio, then you really need to know where your money is invested. That would be my retirement plan advisor uh, spiel and shtick. However, I think what you're talking about is something even more perhaps important, and that is, who do you want to support? What kinds of investments do you want to make? Now, I will tell you this, I've been doing this for a while. And when I first
Mm-hmm.
started out, it seemed like social investing was kind of a new thing. I guess that's putting a little bit of age on me there.
Okay.
And so there were lots of people who said, I really care about the environment. I really care about alcohol, tobacco, pornography, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so I don't want to invest in those companies, those kinds of companies.
Mm-hmm.
And now we find that, or shortly thereafter, let's put it that way, shortly
Right.
thereafter, um, larger companies, um, well, they invested in those kinds of things as well as other things. And then we
Mm-hmm.
found out that with regulation, some of those companies that were what we call pollutants, they had to clean up their act because of the regulation that came
Right.
from the government. So you really do need to focus on where you want to invest. And I have my own personal convictions, stores I don't like to shop at because of who
Mm-hmm.
owns them or the business
Mm-hmm.
that they run. I think everybody should have that. And I definitely don't see a problem with investing with your conscience. But you ought to also know that that may or may not help your portfolio, and be prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I salute you. But as you said in the a little while ago, know what you're investing in. That's very important. You know
I
what
think
you're
so.
investing
I
in.
think so.
Yeah. So let's
Because
hope.
we're just in a very polarized place, and yeah, I get, there are certain things that, uh because of the way certain things are are going, that, yeah, they're going to do very, very well, but it's always, how do you sleep at night, right? So especially when things are much more drastic than they were, say, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point, and I think our present state should let all of us know. Well, we kind of understand what happens when you just say, "I'll let somebody else deal with that. I just need to do my thing." And that's kind of how we got the situation we're in. And depending on what side of the political spectrum you're on, you might even
Hmm.
say, well, that's how we got ourselves before we got into this situation, into that situation. Yeah. So I can understand both points of view.
Right,
But that's why
exactly.
it's good to not put your head in the sand. And if you do put your head in the sand, as I often say, don't bitch.
Yeah, you can't.
Okay, so let's go on. Getting back to our topic there, we were talking about the auto enrollment being up. We're talking about that as a great thing, and I just want to make sure that I let employers know that yes, auto enrollment is awesome. That is a great thing because it's very difficult to increase your contributions to the plan if you're not in the plan.
Right.
Uh, the problem is that even though people get raises, times go on, there's some compounding. It's not enough, right? Most people ought to be contributing 10 to 15% of their income into their plan, most Americans, if not more, depending on how old they are and how
Mhm.
much money they have in the plan. So, you know, uh, and I guess we could use this as a trigger. Raises go up, lifestyles go up, contributions stay the same.
Right. Yeah.
Not good, right?
Mhm.
So um, we want to encourage people to enter to take a look at those savings to make some adjustments according to what's going on in their life. You know, we get stuck with inertia. You know, you sign up at the middle of in the at the beginning of your time period, or once you've been with the company for about a year. Next thing you know, you've been there 5 years, you haven't checked it.
Right.
Next thing you know, you've been there 10 years, and you're wondering if you're going to have enough for retirement after you've been with that
Mhm.
organization for 10 years. So, what can the employer do? I mean, if the employer really wants to turn this into something that's actually going to help people reach their retirement goal, if they want to turn their 401k plan away from being just a cost center and actually being something that can actually help people reach their retirement goal,
Right.
right? If you're the
Mhm.
kind of employer that says, you know, I really want people to matriculate through this organization. I want them to have a good retirement. I don't want to just click a box that says, I got that and move on to something else.
Right.
If that's the kind of employer that you are, then we need to do a couple things. One of the things that I would suggest, auto escalation, right?
Yeah.
Person gets in the plan, they put in their 3% in order, or their 5% in order to get the match. But then let's say that in order to get another match, you need to put another 6%. Or let's stretch that match is what we call it, right? So
Right.
that maybe a person has to put in 10% to get their full 5% match. Okay, that's an idea.
Mhm.
The other thing I would say is when that pay raise comes, let's say those pay raise come every year at the same time. That's a great time to have education. You cannot beat the power of educating your participants when the raise comes. Right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is, you know, most times if you have a payroll person, they know when they know when a person's income is increasing. They know when the raise is coming. They know when things like that are happening in that participant's life from a paycheck point of view.
Mhm.
That's a great time to put a little note in front of that participant saying, hey, this would be a great time to talk with your retirement plan advisor. You're already paying the person. You may as well talk to them. Right? Don't just stick your head in the sand and say, hey. And if I was going to say, hey, another time for a clip, if you're not using auto escalation type policies, then you're really relying on human behavior
Mm.
as a retirement plan advisor or as a retirement plan sponsor. And that's just a losing strategy when you get right down to it, because getting you started is not going to get you finished. So getting your employees started there is not going to get them to that finish line. If someone needs to be putting in 10% of their income, 15% of their income, and they're stuck at 3 or 4, they're not going to make it.
No.
That's just the way the math works out. So you want to think about your plan as something that actually helps people move forward. In that case, it's a real benefit. And
Right.
if it's just one of those boxes that you click off, and if that's you, that's cool, because I understand if you're an employer, you don't start the plan to help other people retire. You start the plan so that you can build up, uh,
For
you know,
yourself.
your family's life. I get that. I support that. I definitely understand that. But then your plan really isn't a bit of benefit. It's a holding pattern.
Right.
So
Exactly.
what do you want? A holding pattern or an actual opportunity for people to reach their retirement goal and say good things about your company?
It's interesting. I do a youth entrepreneur program, and we're in that season right now. And one of the things I talk to my kids about when they're starting businesses today, especially today, is company culture, because it has to
Mm.
start from the top. And I think and we were just, what we were talking about, as far as, yeah, they do start the plans for themselves, because basically that's what the law says they have to do, right? But I think when you think about your business and your companies, if you want growth, you have to have your employees are your biggest, most profitable asset that you have. Yes, you had to put out money in order for them to be there, but to get those quality, qualified individuals that can really help you grow your company, that's part of, like, investing in the equipment, right? Or investing in the product that you're selling, or
Mhm.
investing in your education so you're more qualified to as a consultant. And so I think just as important as that is, so are the people that are helping you with to achieve your goal, because this is your business and your vision. And so the people that you hire, you want them to be on board with you, and being able to take care of them, or also let them know that you care about their future as well as your own. I think that's a sleeping talent that has gone away in the corporate world, or been put in a box and sealed back up. And I think a lot more individuals would be really more committed to their companies if they felt that they were cared for from the top down.
I hope you're right. I stand with you with those comments. I think, especially now where people seem to be wanting to go back to being taken care of a little bit, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there was a time in our nation's history when you would work for a company, and if it was a particular kind of company, perhaps, in many situations, certainly not all, I wouldn't even say the average or majority, but there were some companies that would you could work for them for a number of years, get yourself a pension, and then you could retire on,
Mhm.
I don't know, 75% of your income, your highest level of
Mhm.
income, something like that. That wasn't widespread. I mean, that was widespread, but it wasn't everyone, right?
Right. Exactly.
And then a lot of things happened, and those companies sort of still existed, but more common people had to start taking care of themselves. They had to start making those investment decisions, and that freedom became expensive. And
Mhm.
then we had that wave of folks that would work for a company for 2 years and then leave.
Mhm.
Right? So if you're an employer, how do you engender long-term employees when their actual goal when they come into your company is, I'm going to work for these folks for 2 years, I'm going to take a trip to Europe, and then I'm going to come back, get my MBA, and make $100,000 more than I'm getting now. I think from the
Mhm.
employer's point of view, that's tough. But I think also that you nailed it on the head. If you want to put some doubt in someone's mind as to whether this is a good opportunity that they want to be in a long-term situation for, if you want to do that, and if you want to catch some of those younger assets and those experienced assets even more so, right? If you want to catch those, you want to keep those there, benefits are important because
Mhm.
it's that total compensation number that we look at. Right?
Mhm.
And so, how that total compensation number breaks down, that is up to you, and ultimately, that does affect your company. So, I would say, good comment there. You're spot on, and it really comes down to, if you want people to stay with you, you got to show them that you care about
Yeah, I think so. I know when the last time I worked in corporate America, I had no intentions of staying in my company for more than, well, and I had a goal. So it wasn't like that I was leaving because of the fact that I just don't care about working for corporate people anymore. I had a goal to start my own business. So I had already kind of started it, but on the side, but you had to have a deadline, right? That's the when you're gonna make the exodus. Um but I stayed 5 years over. I had a 10-year deadline, but I stayed 5 years over. And the reason why was because the culture and from the top down was just amazing. And they were family, and we all went out of our way to make that company as successful as it could be. Um, and it was hard to leave, which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, usually folks is like running out the door. Okay, yeah, I don't even need a party. I'm gone, right? I'm calling in, not coming in for the party. But it was hard to leave because they were family, and I think a lot of my friends and at that time, and a lot of my colleagues, we all felt the same way. But that changed somewhere back there. And then yeah, and then the tech industry was not geared for longevity. It was geared for 2 years, 3 years, get what I'm gonna get. And one of the reasons is because every time they moved, the salary went up substantially. And so that's why they were making the move because of that. And then the stock options were even better when they moved to different types of companies. And so I think that's kind of when that part of the era changed, where they weren't staying at companies longer. Then
It's a good point. I totally agree and definitely understand. Um, I think my final point would be as an employer, I just want to say the goal isn't participation; it's actually progress.
yeah.
So, engaging your retirement plan advisor and your record keeper with regard to how many of my employees are actually on target to reach their retirement goal.
Hmm.
um, that's a number that you want to take a look at, and that's the kind of number that is going to help you determine what are the things that you can do to make sure these folks stay around,
Right.
so that they can reach their retirement goal. Because as I said before, the goal isn't participation; it's actually progress, right?
Hmm.
So you want that. You I would think as an employer, I certainly want that. Is
Hmm.
I want to have that period of time in that interview process that says, look, we understand that this is a job. So you come in here, you get it done, you do what you got to do. And we're going to try as best we can from our point of view to help you
Hmm.
reach that retirement goal. Right. So we want to talk about that. It's not one of those things that we do hush hush. Our society has gotten to the point where we can actually have those kinds of discussions. And that's real.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
very
I agree. I agree. Yeah. So yeah, and then yeah, because everybody wants to be able to live a decent life without having to have go leave one job to go for another job. So
It is tough on everybody.
it's tough on everyone. Before we close out, and this is probably another show. I was talking to a girlfriend of mine that's in HR, and she was saying they've seen a huge influx, and she was at a meeting with other HR directors, a huge influx of hardship loans right now from their 401ks. Is that what you're seeing as well?
We are seeing that people are feeling the crunch. Like I said, or we were saying at the beginning of the show, gas prices are up, grocery prices are up, medical prices. That health insurance is definitely up. I know mine quadrupled. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so that was a surprise, right? And folks are saying in some situations they need to start taking money out of their retirement plan in order to pay for the health care. And some folks are even saying, I used to be able to put in X, but I got a family, I got kids, I need to pay that health care. So maybe I'm going to put in Y, which is substantially less. And
Mm,
then some folks are saying, okay, we need that hardship withdrawal. This is not going easy, especially with the advent of things like self certifying, where the employer doesn't have to get involved to determine what's really a hardship. So I would say, yeah, it's happening. It's happening in a big way. And I would say, please, please be careful, because even though you can get the money for a hardship, if it's not quote unquote deemed a hardship, the IRS will come in and penalize you,
mm,
right? So
mhm.
you got to know the rules between a hardship loan and a hardship withdrawal. If you can, I would say don't take that withdrawal, or, but you got to do what you got to do. I totally, totally understand that. And that's where it's so important that we talk about the things that we do because when we take a look at buying and selling assets in our mutual fund, how do we want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about diversifying our portfolio, and as you suggested, knowing what you're investing in, how do you want to do that? And please do it. Please talk with your retirement plan advisor. Please talk with your employer. Please get some understanding. Don't just do things emotionally. That's when we get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. They put some thought through it. Yeah. Because long term, you want to think of long term. Nothing stays consistent forever. So
Yeah,
even though we're in the eye of the storm right now. Eventually, the eye passes, and you got to deal with what the consequences afterwards. And so, yeah, think how close are you to retirement? That's a big thing.
it is.
Because for
Changes
sure,
constant.
it changes constant. And for sure, what we're going through is not going to go through if it's 5, 10, 15 years from now. That's not going to happen. Just because
It's,
most people don't live past a certain time frame.
there's that Chinese curse. May you live in interesting times. Right?
Man, you live it, and that's what we're doing, living in interesting times.
Okay, I'm gonna read your bio, and then we can close out the show and get ready for next week.
Sounds
Everyone, thank
fantastic.
you for joining us. This has been Conversations on the Patio. My co host and colleague, Crystal Mitchell, has been joining us. I'm going to read her bio in just a moment. My name is Jevon Thomas, retirement plan advisor. But this is Crystal. She is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co director of Recycling Black Dollars, co host at The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, a weekly online radio show, another online radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. And when she's not doing that, she's getting involved in the community and I hope sleeping sometime. I don't know when she does, but hopefully she does. It's been a great pleasure as always. We'll see you next
Oh,
Monday on Conversations on the Patio.
bye bye, everyone. Have a great week. Be safe out there.